And we know Metro Council members could soon change where data centers can be built here in the Nashville area. WSMV4's Julie Bukovac has a breakdown of what leaders are considering tonight.
Today, Metro Council members are taking final votes on two different proposals for data center development. One would create rules limiting where new data centers can be built, allowing them only in certain industrial areas with special approval. And then the second would temporarily pause new data center proposals through November, giving the city more time to finalize additional regulations if needed. And those votes, they come after a packed council meeting earlier with hundreds of people. They were there speaking out, and that meeting lasted into the early morning hours. So that last city council meeting, it took a long time. And now if both of those proposals pass that final vote at tonight's meeting, that would mean that those new rules when it comes to new data center development, they would take effect immediately. Reporting in Nashville, I'm Julie Bukovac, WSMV4.
Gallatin City Council members will also vote today on data center regulations there. We know a resolution would direct Gallatin's Planning Commission to look at a potential moratorium on building new data centers. If this vote goes through, the commission will then talk about their next steps at the July 27th meeting. Metro Council members, they will also be discussing more than just data centers later today. We know dozens of resolutions are on the table right now. They're aimed at improving the safety and infrastructure of Music City. One resolution urges NDOT and the mayor to renew and accelerate its commitment to Vision Zero. It's an initiative to eliminate pedestrian fatalities. Now, another resolution would approve a project to refinance some old bonds held by the Music City Center, which the mayor said would free up some non-tax revenues for other projects like the East Bank development as well as affordable